I'm Chris Story, and this is Alaska Real Estate. Today, a show you'll want to share with every realtor you know. Fsbo, or unrepresented sellers. What's the formula for converting an Fsbo into an Fsbyou? Is there one? You'll hear from Philip Alderfer in Homer, Angie Tallant all the way up in Fairbanks, Glenda Feeken in Kenai, and Lonnie Logan in Anchorage. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this trip around Alaska as we explore the world of for sale by owner. Our program made possible in part thanks to the support of Alaska USA Mortgage Company, a name you know and people you trust. With mortgage professionals all over Alaska, they're ready to serve you today wherever you are. Online 24/7 at alaskausamortgage.com. And Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, your partner in Alaska real estate, with a mission to provide and make accessible to every Alaskan safe, affordable, and efficient housing. Alaska Housing wants you to succeed. Visit ahfc.us today, and for all the latest on energy efficiency, akrebate.com. Angie Tallant, do you pursue for sale by owners, and if so, do you have a particular approach that is more readily converting for sale by owners into listings for you? Is there any secret sauce you found?
I have converted Fsbos into listings there in the past. And the first thing that I like to identify is why they're not listing with a realtor before they put the house on the market. And it's generally one of two things. They have had a bad experience with a realtor, or the whole transaction was bad, and it just kind of put a sour taste in their mouth, or they don't want to pay the commission. So identifying with them on those levels while you're talking to them and they're engaging them in conversation, you're trying to find out why before you're pitching yourself, will help you talk to them and get on their level so that way you can explain what you can do for them.
So going back to number one then, they've had a bad experience. What would that conversation look like for you putting them at ease?
I would ask them to tell me about the situation, and I would, most people just want to be heard. When they have a problem, they just want to know that somebody's actually listening to them and that can help them solve their problem. And a lot of the time, our main objective in our job is to find compromise and find some common ground and for people to work together. So just talking them through that, not necessarily making them relive it, but talking about the things that you could have done or ideas you would have had to fix the problem. Give them assurance in your abilities to be able to sell their home.
Sure.
The rapport that you build with them when you're doing that, they're going to remember. And you want them to remember you over anybody else that calls, because I can guarantee you 80,000 other people are calling them to get that listing as well.
Right, exactly. Well, let's talk about the all-important, I don't know if it's more important to them, but equally as important would be the money aspect you raised. So what does that conversation look like when they say, well, I can save the money for the commission by doing it myself? What do you say to that?
Well, we talk about, how a transaction works and kind of walking them through every aspect of a transaction. Sometimes what makes them, if they've done it before, chances are you're probably not going to list the property. But if they're a first-time Fsbo, they're going to realize soon that they're over their head and that they are going to need some help. You definitely don't want to overwhelm them, but as long as they're willing to talk, you just keep going through and explaining it with them. And then if you can get an appointment to get over to the house, hopefully you can carry it on from there.
What level of activity are you seeing in the Fairbanks and the greater Fairbanks area as far as for sale by owner signs are? For example, as we speak, there is a for sale by owner sign literally at the corner of the highway and my office road, leading you, 25 yards past my office to a for sale by owner. It was sort of funny. But anyway, what level of activity are you seeing with these signs going up around your area? Is it more than before or about on par?
I think it's just a little more than before. That or they're just getting a little more ingenious with their marketing. They're using Craigslist kind of like we do when we list a property. So they're getting that exposure because a lot of people do searching on Craigslist, and just, general advertising on the internet at all, through Facebook, just social media means to be able to get it out there in mass quantities and the fastest. And so they're having a lot of luck with that, not necessarily meaning that their transactions are going well, but they're getting a lot of exposure that way where they weren't getting so much exposure a few years ago.
Right. They were dependent almost upon somebody seeing their little classified ad or their sign.
Or their flyer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The flyer. That's right. The all-important flyer.
Yep.
All right, Angie. Well, I appreciate your time. And everything going good at Summers and Associates there in Fairbanks?
Oh, yeah, everything's going wonderful. We're actually expanding and taking over the ground level of our building, so I'm really excited about that. Not the best time of year to be doing a remodel, but, we'll get it done, and everybody will be happy and have some more space. So we're really excited about that.
Excellent. Well, good for you. And if you can keep April Frick in line, then you're doing a good job.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Angie.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Philip Alderfer, owner, broker of the Alderfer Group real estate firm here in Homer, Alaska. How do you, sir, handle for sale by owners, or do you?
It's a very good question, comes up a lot. And our attitude towards folks who want to represent themselves is to suggest that they go for it. I mean, real estate is getting a house sold, buying a house and getting a house sold is a long process. It's a lot of hard work. If somebody wants to take that on themselves, more power to them. I think it's wonderful. The industry exists because a lot of people choose not to do it themselves, and that's okay too. We have, our firm, your firm, firms all across our state are loaded with good professionals who do this all the time. But we don't worry that much if people want to take on those responsibilities themselves, and it starts at the very beginning. It's pricing, it's preparing the home for sale, it's marketing and promotion, it's negotiating the contract, and it's getting through closing. Those are the 5 main things that we think we do for a client. If somebody wants to do those things on their own, let them do it.
So it's not part of the marketing scheme of your firm to call up for sale by owners or look through the papers or Craigslist or classifieds and try to convert a for sale by owner to a listing?
Not for us, no. I mean, our attitude is that they've chosen to do something on their own. They don't need us calling them and telling them that that's a bad idea. At the very least, it's just going to make them mad. I think it's unlikely that we're going to convince somebody in 30 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes. And we instead focus our time and energy on the clients who feel like they want and need our services. We want to give our full attention to them. And if we can show those folks who might be thinking about doing it on their own the way we work and how good a job we do through those other clients, they will come back to us. So we don't pursue them aggressively in any way. And someone told me one time, it's something that I thought was kind of funny and in some ways accurate about like the unrepresented seller, working for themselves. And the analogy was this: I mean, it's a lot like giving yourself a haircut. If it turns out well, you've just saved a lot of money and time, and that's great. But a lot of times, you give yourself a haircut and you look like you did in first grade. You got out the paper, and glue and
God.
And those are the pictures you want to forget. And if someone can, if you have the skills to give yourself a haircut, do it. Go for it.
Well, in your observation, Philip, around the Southern Peninsula, Anchor Point, Homer area, are you seeing, in your opinion, more or less for sale by owners, or just on par with what you typically see?
I think this community, these areas, are completely on par with what we always expect in any given market, which is to say that there are always folks who are more interested in trying it on their own when a real estate market is really hot, when it's easier to sell property. That's when more people do it on their own because, well, frankly, it is easier. If there are very few sellers and lots of buyers, then people will experiment a little bit. When you have a market that is slower or you're trying to sell, even in a hot market, there can be certain niches that are slower to move. If you're in one of those situations, then we see more people coming to realtors asking for help because the work is just much, much harder.
All right, Philip. Well, thank you for your perspective. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Good to talk to you as always.
Please don't deactivate me.
Well, my name is Lonnie Logan, and I work with RE/MAX Properties serving the Anchorage, I serve the Anchorage and Eagle River area.
Let's talk about for sale by owner. And first of all, are you noticing in your market an increase of for sale by owners, or is it pretty much par for the course?
I think we're seeing a little bit more of for sale by owners and noticing them because of working with buyers. They're bringing those to us. With the for sale by owner companies and the access they have to put the information in the computer system and with Craigslist and so forth, I think that maybe it's the same number, but it seems like it's an increased number because we're seeing more of them.
Interesting. So you're saying your buyers are bringing them to your attention or saying, hey, this is a property I want to go see. You're not actively in your marketing going out there and canvassing, looking for Fsbos to convert to a listing.
That's correct. We're not.
Well, when dealing with them, let's talk a little bit about that. So you're representing the buyer and you're looking at a for sale by owner. What's your experience been like, and do you have any methods that work better than others?
I think we've had some pretty positive experiences working with sale by owners. And when we sit down and do our initial consultation with the buyer, we tell them, our marketplace is small, and you're going to come across those. Write the phone number down. Bring it to my attention. Let us make the first contact because we don't want you telling them how long you've been looking, sharing, and giving up your negotiation position. And we tell them real simply, the conversation is made in front of the buyer so they know, exactly what we're saying to them, and it's just, hi, this is Lonnie Logan. I represent a buyer who saw your property and is interested. Are you working with buyer's representations? And if the seller says yes, then we say, great, when can we come to the property? And if they tell us no, we say, thank you very much. The buyer will be in touch if they have further interest. And we let the buyer at that point make the decision if they want to go through the process without us or if they want to go ahead and find another property. Because we don't want to come in between them getting the home of their dreams and us being involved in that process or not. So that's kind of our approach with our clients about it and how we take it to those for sale by owners.
What a great point to bring it up with your buyers very early in your relationship so that it's not something that they stumble upon or you have to figure out later. That's a very good point.
I think just being that transparency up front and addressing, those elephants that are in the room, you get them right there up front and then you're not scrambling or they're thinking, how could you bring this up to me before? And I think making that initial phone call in front of them, then that also just reinforces that we're looking out for their interests, not ours.
Right. Good point. Let's talk about, commissions. And at such point, are you finding the sellers willing to work with you and cooperate for the most part on a brokerage fee of some sort?
Yes, they are. A lot of them already, they're trying to save the fee that they would normally pay in having their representation, and they're willing to pay a buyer's fee. And that fee we're seeing, a range anywhere from a 1% to 4%.
Okay, 1 to 4. Okay, and I really, really respect what you said that you don't want to stand between your buyer and the home of their dreams, regardless of whether the seller wants representation or a realtor involved or not. Any particular sense or feeling of where these sellers are coming from as it pertains to not seeking representation or choosing to go for sale by owner? What's your sense there?
The sense we've actually had 4 people this year, and what's interesting is 3 of them were with the same client. So this particular individual had multiple properties they were selling. They had the properties for a long period of time. They had not refinanced them from what we could see. So they were not in a situation where it was going to be a distressed property. They felt like as much real estate as they had bought and sold over the years, that they didn't need that representation. What is interesting is they took the very first offer that came in, even when people were still calling them to see properties and get into the properties. So you kind of wonder, well, did you price it right? How did you price it? Because it was something where we couldn't get in the door with the client to look at, I didn't do any further research on the property beyond that. So I can't tell if they underpriced them because of for sale by owner, which is unique because a lot of times for sale by owners are overpriced, if anything. We have one gentleman that had a purchase and sales agreement, and the buyer was not pre-approved. And so, again, because we went in with that helpful hand, what can we do? If something changes, let us know. He actually called us a couple times to ask us a couple questions. We had to be a little careful about what we commented on because we weren't involved and didn't want to give that indication and have liability there. But I think that, that helpful hand comes back, and that transaction actually fell apart because he just didn't know what it was he didn't know about getting through the process. Unfortunately, the client we worked with found something else in the meantime. He had called us several times since then. So I think that is a situation where we had talked about before, the sellers, if we go in helpful and not for attitude because they're not working with a licensee, it does give us an opportunity to maybe come back into that fold and maybe represent them later down the road as a seller's representative.
Very well put. Thank you, Lonnie Logan.
You're very welcome.
All right, Glenda, for sale by owners, do you call them? Do you knock on doors? Do you leave them be? And do you have a magic formula for converting a for sale by owner into a listing?
I don't think I have any magic formula. I do not knock on their doors, but, I do see them as I float through the grocery store. And, we chat about their process and how it's going and, give them, the friendly little hints we can. And a lot of times, you don't. My choice is not to confront them, but to be polite, to be helpful, and a lot of times they appear in my office and saying it's not working for me and we'd like to list.
What about when you're presenting a listing or you're asked to do a listing presentation and the subject comes up? What does that conversation look like when a customer, would-be prospective client says, "I'm thinking about selling it myself"? How does that conversation go for you?
And then, we kind of talk about how are you going to plan on marketing this? And a lot of times they're saying, I'm thinking about a for sale by owner website. I'm thinking about Craigslist. And then we have the discussion of the quality of clients that you're finding on Craigslist. A lot of your people that are bottom feeding come looking from Craigslist. We talk about the expense, of putting it in the paper. We talk about, you're not getting a lot of your quality buyers because they're working with agents and they're not being shown your home.
Yeah.
Even though you may say we're cooperating in that, these agents are not choosing to show these for sale by owners, not maybe because they're snubbing them, but they're just not on their radar. They're looking on the MLS. They're dealing with their other agents that they know that will help move a transaction along. We talk about how do you plan on pricing your home. Now, if you're there, you've probably already helped them price. So, that's kind of behind the eight ball when you're talking about pricing, but for sale by owners tend to either overprice or underprice. They seem to be able to find the market. And I think a lot of times, even if a for sale by owner, and we talk about it, if you do find a buyer, can you move it to closing? Because I think we as agents are great mediators. We temper the tone of a transaction, and if there's conflict over repairs or appraisal, we're there to negotiate. And I think that's very hard for a buyer and a seller to do without a third party. Maintaining
that objectivity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you can't discuss for sale by owner without discussing the commission dollars. And how do you define your value or your worth? Why are you worth 6% or whatever it is that you happen to charge?
Well, to start with, I am bringing you quality buyers. I am bringing quality buyers to the table. I am bringing my expertise to walk you through the process. Everything, I guess it starts with the listing. We start with the listing. We see all of your paperwork's appropriately filled out. We make sure you get all of your disclosures lined up and going. We are here. We've done marketing for years. We're, placing ads. We're contacting agents that's showing in your price range. When you have a buyer, we're helping you negotiate that to get your best dollar. We're helping you negotiate repairs. We interact with the appraiser. We interact with the bank. We smooth the way. We don't just either find a buyer or a seller. We're there through the whole process. We're moving you forward. And our expertise is invaluable to getting it to close.
Are you seeing the normal number of Fsbos this year or above average or just on par? Where's the level of Fsbo activity at?
I think there is a lot of for sale by owners. But I also think a lot of these for sale by owners are converted into people that are listing with agents. I think, a lot of people have the vision that, it's easy to do, but if they have a 9-to-5 or a job where they're working, who's there to answer the phone, who's there to set that showing, who's there to deal with this? And I think they find that's very awkward to try to deal with. So I think we have a lot of people that are for sale by owners, but I don't think they stay there very long.
I agree. Thank you, Glenda Feeken. I appreciate it.
And thank you.
What do you think? Do you pursue for sale by owners for converting into listings? Are you seeing more or less Fsbo activity in your market? Join the conversation by clicking on the Forum tab and weigh in right now. Also, we're looking for the best for sale by owner signs. You know the classic Fsbo sign, right? With no contact information. It's upside down. You just can't read it. Send me your photos and we'll post them to the blog. The email address is story@xyz.net. story@xyz.net. Looking for the best Fsbo sign. Alaska Real Estate Podcast is underwritten by the friendly folks at Alaska USA Title Agency. Complete title and escrow services all over Alaska. Let me tell you from personal experience, Alaska USA Title understands communication and the importance of keeping you in the loop throughout the whole transaction. Join the growing number of very satisfied customers at Alaska USA Title Agency. And you can check them out online at alaskausatitle.com. Well, there you have it. That's our show for today. Our executive producer is Sandy Ehrenman. I'm Chris Story, wishing you health, wealth, and prosperity.